Our goal is not the victory of might, but the vindication of right. Not peace at the expense of freedom, but both peace and freedom here in this hemisphere, and we hope around the world.
I have a dream.
Well, that's where we start when I go into politics.
Continue to be held as hostages in an attempt to force unacceptable demands on our country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Is increasing inequality and deep divisions among our own people.
Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack.
Congress has failed to pass federal hate crimes legislation that protects LGBT Americans from senseless violence.
So let us summon a new spirit of patriotism, of responsibility, where each of us resolves to pitch in and work harder and look after not only ourselves but each other.
Broadcasting live from the MSC Radio Network in the city built on steel, rock and roll, and is the fictitious home of Betty White. This is Jousted Out, and I'm your host, G. With me is the lovely Judith Pindell.
Good evening.
And, of course, Robin our hearts.
Hello, all.
Looking quite retro.
Well, thank you. Back in the, I don't even know what time era this was from.
Yeah, I think it's like 60s. It was 60s, wasn't it?
60s, I think.
But in the studio, we have the great honor of having Judge Elaine Crane, former Ohio judge and prosecutor.
He's nervous.
Lawyer. I am. No, why? She was torturing me. Let me say why I'm nervous. Can I say? Let me finish. Judge.
She's biting.
She's gonna do me in. She's already immediately in the green room. She was on me like this, and then she told me that she wants to go down a whole other road tonight than we were going to. But we might go there for you, Judge. We will.
We're going.
Okay.
There's no options here.
And by the way, that's 1962.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
The exact year.
Mm-hmm. I used to have one.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and it was pink too.
Now I feel awesome.
I still have one hanging in my closet. I think I have 1,800 linear feet of clothing space. Can't bear to throw it away. I may someday fit in it again.
Definitely.
Go ahead, Judith.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I'm just so excited. It's so fascinating. I think if any of you saw on Facebook that Judge Crane was President Nixon's secret weapon.
That's right.
And we have her here in the studio.
And I know why. She was the secret weapon.
So what does that mean to be the secret weapon?
Well, we're going to go there. We're going to go there. We're going to let her discuss this and share with us. Take it away.
May I?
Yes, please.
Okay. I was Special Assistant to the Attorney General of the United States. Mm-hmm. The first one was John Mitchell, and then Richard Kleindienst. And Richard Kleindienst's wife, Marnie Kleindienst, was from Cleveland, Ohio. So he had Ohio underpinnings, and he knew about Buckeyes, and they were good people. Well, one of the things that was going on in that particular period of time was campus violence. Mm-hmm. And so my boss said, well, we have to talk to them. Well, I was ponytailed. Short. I had a mini skirt. It was so short, my father used to say the Tampax strings showed. And we're on the internet, so I can say things like
that. Yes, you can. Yeah.
And so my boss appointed me as his emissary to all of the college campuses to try to communicate. We were dealing with Vietnam. Right. We were dealing with civil disobedience. We were dealing with equal rights and needs for women. I had gone to this very liberal institution called Vassar College.
Mm-hmm. We might have heard of it.
Yeah, just a little.
In which I was one of 3 Republicans, and we met in a phone booth. And
who was your roommate?
Gloria Steinem.
Gloria Steinem.
Yes, and now she's at home taking care of her house, and I've got 2 businesses, and I'm out in business and not retired. Figure that one out if you can.
But also in the position you had was you took the place, your second in command used to be of that same position that you took was Supreme Court Justice Rehnquist.
That's right. I took Bill's place.
Yeah. I didn't know you get to call him Bill.
He ran out of suits that didn't have eggs on them. I'm serious. I mean, we had pigs let loose in the auditorium when we were talking. We had tomatoes thrown on us. And the whole idea, and it was a really serious one, is you could ignore people and all take your firm positions, or you could increase the dialogue and have a communication. And when I'm knocking on the pearly gates, one of the things I'm going to cite after I tell St. Peter's that I can't remember where I put my keys, therefore I can't, and Judy knows about that, is we tried to bridge the communication gap. And if there's anything that came out of those turbulent 60s, it was the attempt and the try to listen to both sides of the story. I came into a world where I didn't know that people were not valued for who they were. And I had rude awakenings about that. I remember one time where I was to introduce Bill Ruckelshaus, who was then hired ahead of the EPA, and we as trial lawyers had brought the first EPA action under the 1899 Refuge Act against the city and state of New York, city of New York, state of New York, because they were polluting the Hudson River. And the Hudson River went past Poughkeepsie, New York, where Vassar was, and it was my thesis about government working together to try to end a pollution problem. These old-fashioned Republican administration used an old 1899 act to accomplish it. Well, Mr. Ruckelshaus was going to be speaking at the Army-Navy Club in Washington, D.C. about water pollution and how we were trying to clean up the water supply for everybody. And I was to introduce him because Mr. Kleindienst didn't want to, so he said, Elaine will do it. So you say, yes, General, when they say it. So we're walking into the front of the Army-Navy Club, and I'm sitting there, and there was a black porter at the door, and he said, stop. And Mr. Ruckelshaus is really tall. He's about 6'6". And if I stretch really high, or I wear those shoes you're wearing, I maybe can be 5'7". Then, now 5'6", because as you get older, you shrink. Yeah. So does your pocketbook. All those things. And they stopped us, and they said, you can't come in here. And I thought he meant because we weren't members. And he said, oh, no, she, pointing to me, can't come in here.
Wow.
And Mrs. Ruckelshaus said, well, why can't she come in? She's a lawyer. And the man who came up to about here on me started at my head and went all the way down to my feet and came all the way up to my head, and he said, I'm sorry, sir. She may be a lawyer, but she sure looks like a lady.
Wow.
And no woman was allowed to walk in that front door. It was a men-only club. Okay, so we had an issue then. What could we do? I was introducing him. He needed to be introduced. He was standing his ground. If she doesn't go in, I don't go in. And I saw a server go around behind the place. And I said, I'll see you upstairs. And I followed her, and I said to her, how do you get upstairs to serve the tables? And she said, we either go up the back stairs, but we can't get into the restaurant without a key card. I said, how does the food get up there? And she said, we have a dumbwaiter. And I said, what's the square footage of it? And she looked at me and she said, what do you mean? I said, pull me up. She said, oh, ma'am, I can't do that. I said, we're going to do that. So they folded me, and I have claustrophobia. They folded me into this dumbwaiter. It took 3 men to pull it up because I was so heavy. And when I got up, I brushed off, and I introduced Bill Ruckelshaus in the dining room with a piece of lettuce on the edge of my skirt that I was totally unaware of. Now, what was that all about? Well, we had a role. We had to show people how stupidly funny that was. They had a rule and a principle. I needed to respect their point of view, but I didn't have to accept it, but I had to bring mine in. And of course, on the way out, the generals escorted me down the front and out the front door.
I want to ask you, because, I mean, I think you made a fascinating point there. And if you look at where we are, and you mentioned you being a Republican, in this evolution of what the Republican Party and our discourse in this country has become between the Dems and the Republicans and a third party movement, which is the Tea Party. What is your...
there's a four-party movement. There's also Occupy Wall Street.
Right.
You've
well,
got to, and if you
right.
don't, when you ask the question, if you don't consider it balanced, if you know, our country is represented by scales of justice, and if you think about what Americans, and I mean Americans, I don't mean Europeans, I don't mean people that are from the Middle East, I'm talking about people that were born and raised and educated in our really special principles, and I feel very strongly about it. We try to find a balance, and so if it tips too far one way, we struggle to tip it back the other way.
Well, saying that, do you feel that it tipped too far when all of a sudden in Congress we had so many Tea Party members take seats and really is forcing the hand of the more moderates in such a big way in the last couple of years?
It is tipped only because the people who are there are not being allowed to go to a compromise. You know, there's one expression that says all the accidents happen in the middle of the road, but it doesn't flood in the middle of the road either. And no, I don't think so, because we have also the checks and balances. And that's a triangle, which, by the way, is the strongest structure in the United States. Supreme Court, notice where I put it, I'm a lawyer.
I saw that.
President,
on top, folks, sorry if you're not watching.
And then Congress. Yeah. And that's why we try to keep it balanced. Yes, of course, there's tipping. When we were fighting for feminism and women, one of the expression was we weren't acting like ladies, right? Well, what century do you want to define ladies? Because if you go back to Helen of Troy, or you go back to Joan of Arc, were they ladies? or you go back to women working side by side with men in the fields because we had to get it done. Were those ladies? No, ladies came from Victorian England. And okay, that was nice. I give tea parties at the inn, and we have a ball, because you know what? I talk about how the tea was the original Red Bull when Marco Polo found it, and he brought it back.
Or at our place, cocaine energy drink, yes.
Yeah, well, I have vitamin water. And because I'm over 65, and so I get to have vitamin water. But when Marco Polo brought tea back, there was already a custom in Europe of having a mid-afternoon meal because it was hot in the middle of the day. And therefore, you had to take a rest, a siesta, whatever you want to call it. So there was this afternoon pick-me-up meal. Well, Victorian England kept the women at home. It was a sign of success that your wife didn't have to go out to work. And so therefore, I mean, you can only say I'm going to potty so many times, and you begin to go like this if you're a thinking human being when you're stuck at home with little munchkins, and you see wrongs. You see 14-year-olds working in factories. You see streets with pollution on it and horse manure and all that stuff. So you begin to do it. So what happened, American style, the Tea Party that was started in England where women could talk to each other, when it jumped across the pond to America, what we ladies did in America was like Mrs. DuPont, as she had her husband build her a tea pagoda, and they had their tea parties until all the men left the room, and then they flipped the table over, and then it was the 19th Amendment.
I love it.
So again, and the theme and the thesis that I have in trying to treat everybody is my philosophy is that every human being that you meet knows something more about something than you know. So when I was a municipal court judge, you kind of got that.
You're right,
that's what you had to look for. But let me tell you the other thing. I've also found that people can find communications through humor. And I've had you laughing since I got here.
Yes, but I still need to go back to this question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because we just went off of it, but I really
told you I wasn't going to let you go where you wanted to go.
I know.
Just real quick, I'm going to fire G and have her as the host now.
Oh, very funny, Chris.
All right, see ya.
All right.
Oh wait, but I'm still the co-host.
No,
wait. Only if we move the show to Painesville at Riders. Then I can have a glass of wine with it.
I know we should have had wine.
It was my fault. I dropped the ball on that one.
Lake County wine.
So we're going back to this. Is that the discourse that is happening right now in this country and the evolution. I was born and raised in Rhode Island. We had moderate Republicans for pretty much the majority of my life. The last couple of years, it's changed. Occasionally, there were extreme Republicans in the party. The things you've said to me represent what the party, the Grand Old Party, the Republican Party was for many years, and the legislation that was done and how people came together no matter how different they were. And we know of those great relationships of the senators and congresspeople from both sides of the aisle being friends. But the stuff we hear today, do you feel that it is extremely different, or do you feel that maybe just the hype of media makes it seem so different?
That's where I'm going.
Okay.
Let me tell you something that happened today. I didn't know I was coming down here because last week when she canceled me, she forgot to tell me it was this week. And so last night,
it's all Judith's fault.
No, her partner reminded me, so I was trying to think what I could do to make your show fun for your listeners. And so I turned on the television for inspiration because it makes me mad. And it was very, very interesting because both on Fox News, CNBC, which is the stock market was up today, so I was really happy, and CNN, they were dealing with something that has come up just yesterday. And what has come up is now that Mr. Romney looks like he's going to be the nominee for the Republican Party. Of course,
because Rick Santorum is dropped out.
They were suddenly bringing up, why can we have a Mormon be president of the United States? And they were blasting, they were trying to pin down the Catholic bishop, and they were going after a rabbi, and they were talking to, I'm not sure what faith he was, but it was obviously Protestant because they were trying to get all three of them to say something. And on CNN, they were saying, well, we've never had any Mormons in power. And they were making the analogy to President Kennedy's speech when he said that I won't pay homage to the Pope. That was what was going on CNN. On CNBC, they were interviewing some rich guy who was saying that his secretary paid less taxes than him. And they were ignoring the issue, essentially. And on Fox, they pointed out that Senator Reid is a Mormon and has been in the government for how many terms? 8? And that he has been the head of the Senate. And no one has mentioned his religion at all. CNN was obviously listening to Fox because when I flashed back to it, I have fun with my channel chaser. When I flashed back to it, they said, oh my goodness, nothing wrong. They hadn't noticed that. Well, there we are. There is the media with the emphasis. And when you're in government, I don't think you lean over to the president of Russia and say, wait till I get reelected and then we'll talk about this issue. I think that may be a little bit too far. But you do say, let's talk about it. Let's explore things. Let's not take a firm position. But I can come this way and still be true to my principles, and you can come this way. And right now with this instant media, you can't always do that. So I don't know that all the people in Congress at all should be painted with a very black brush, but I think we should give them some latitude to compromise without punishing them, without saying you've given up your principles. And we should also know what our principles are. I mean, is your principle, are you truly believing that the American nation as we know it will fail if the debt crisis goes out of control? Do you really believe that Syria should have the nuclear bomb? I'm making this up. You know, if you really feel that, then say that to somebody. I mean, I will say to you when you reach a point that I don't know that I can compromise on. One of the issues that I have had to search my soul, and I'm going to go to it before you do, is I have had many miscarriages. I have only have one live birth, but I have 12 children because every time I lost a child in my 3rd trimester, we adopted and we took in foster children. And when it came time for my young one, Courtney, who she knows, I, again, was ill. I had an amniocentesis because I was an old mother. I was over 40. And they put it through an infected polyp, and it took the infection into the womb. And the doctor simply said to me, and I will use my name as Judge Crane, said, Judge Crane, you must abort this baby or you will die. Period. End of discussion. I said, Doctor, why do you say that? And he said, no one has survived this amniocentesis, where the infection goes to your bladder, it goes to your kidney, it goes to your heart, and then you both die. And the argument was made to me, well, you will both die, as opposed to you can survive and try again. I don't believe in that. I believe sometimes you can forfeit your life by taking the life of someone else, but I do not believe in abortion. It's my firm belief. And I had to pray over it, I had to think about it, and I made the decision that she was not going to go. Well, that young lady is now a practicing pediatrician in the University of Cincinnati School of Medicine, and she has devoted her life to dealing with center kids, adolescents, and having a doctor. And that is what she's doing. Because I reached the point where I couldn't go anymore. But I considered it, I thought about it. And I asked people to respect me for that.
No, and I absolutely agree, and I don't want to go down this whole road and have this whole conversation around this particular issue, because I know it can be, but what I will say is that, yeah, I mean, that is a really personal decision, and that was a decision that you and many women have been able to make for themselves, and that was a choice that that you and many women have been able to make. And then on the other side...
But you have to arm those women to make the decision. I had the general counsel of University Hospital say, you have to sign this paper. I had Father Kern from Immaculate Conception Church in Willoughby saying, follow your heart, Elaine. So I had a support group. And for the women who don't have that support group, it is so much easier to follow the leader. And that's why you need to have people speak up like me who say, if you are considering this and you're having problems, we will counsel with you, and people that are counseling the other direction, obviously. But it needs to be talked about, and it needs not to be presented as there's only one answer, and if you don't do it, somehow you're bad, you're dirty, you're not proper.
Exactly. And I'm of the belief that it doesn't need to be governed and legislated by a legislative body, that's a decision that the woman and the doctor and her faith and her family can make, and that it doesn't need to be legislated from that perspective.
But you can't be completely without some legislation, because in our country, our legislation is the skeleton around which all of our values and things grow. And if you take away all legislation, then the very weak don't have a support for their decision, and the very strong can abuse the very weak.
Right.
Think about that one.
I am, and I'm just gonna. I do want to say, to the point of, do you at least see or recognize that there is a difference that is happening today? Maybe not to the beginning of Roe v. Wade, but just in the last, if you look at the last 10 years or 20 years even, and we just move forward, do you feel that, and especially in the last couple, do you feel that there is it is ratcheted up to a point that so many people are talking about this issue on a regular basis? It's like gay marriage. It's talked about in a way, and it's also fuel for the fire. It's a way to break down and separate people out. And no matter where you're coming from on both sides, I mean, you both are coming from a very different perspective on it. But I think that if what you were talking about earlier was the dialogue, and the dialogue is that we still respect each other, like each other as
you
people.
Just made a turn in your question. Do you realize that?
Well,
your question was going one way, and you just went. Exactly. I like the end of your question, because dialogue is better. It just took me a little while to get to the question. Yeah, it was just going around the horn. But one of the things that when you talk about these they're called buzzwords. They're really ones. The nuclear war, gay marriage, not that they're the same. Marriage, maybe, but not gay marriage. And
clearly, you haven't been in my bedroom.
That's 2/3 of fun to you. Really, your bedroom. Do you want to talk about now or later? We can find a couch.
No, I was just using humor to,
I think sometimes truth comes out in humor. Remember that. But when you talk about these really, really strong issues, and you can start, as you said, to go back and forth. But one of the things that people, I think, across the board are concerned about is when you take an issue like life and death, and nuclear war is, and abortion is, and you start to treat it lightly and in too much humor, then you have, for example, the concern that I have heard a lot of parents, I run a bar, so I hear a lot of real true stories. They're using abortion instead of abstinence or responsibility. If I get pregnant, I'll just get rid of it. That kind of thing. And how does that spread to how you feel about the person sitting next to you? And how does that feel about when you're talking in an environment like this? I could be sitting here texting my answers to you. Do we have a third dimension to human nature? And then you can keep going. And if you think about those things, then you can stop short of getting the whole way, where it's really, really doesn't matter. It's not a life. It's a thing. And is it really? I mean, one of the things we do at the end that we are having more fun with than we've ever had is we ask the question, is there a ghost?
Well, that's what we're going to get to.
Well, let me finish it because it's part of my point right here.
Okay.
As human beings, we have explored to the tiniest part of the human body, and we've gone to the other universe where there may be another Earth. But we still don't know what happens to human energy after the day of death.
And on that note, because we're going to go to a break, and I'm dying in the next half hour.
I'm supposed to answer the question.
We are going to come back, and we're going to talk about some LGBTQ equality. We're going to talk about maybe a little of the Zimmerman indictment. We'll come back and talk about that real quick. We also want to hear the retired judge's opinion of the current candidates running for the Republican nomination. And then we are going to talk about the inn, the history of it, and, of course, are there ghosts? So we'll be back with Judge Elaine Crane.
Cocaine Energy Supplement Studio. You're listening to Morning Show Central Radio Network. Call the show toll free. 1-888-668-0742. You're listening to Morning Show Central Radio Network on morningshowcentral.com. Check out Uncensored Net Noise every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here. Uncensored Net Noise on morningshowcentral.com. If you live the lifestyle, then you should arrive in style. Lifestyle Limousine Service. Whether it's dinner for two, an evening at the winery, or a night out on the town, Lifestyle Limousine provides extraordinary service. Check them out on the web, lifestylelimousineservice.com. Reserve your ride now. 330-903-0508. 330-903-0508. Lifestyle Limousine Service. And make sure you tell them Morning Show Central Radio Network sent you.
I'm Eric Posted from NeoWeather.com, bringing you your MSC weather forecast here on this Wednesday evening of April 11th, 2012. Well, we'll dip to near 30 degrees tonight. Any rain or snow showers will come to an end across the area, setting the stage for a very nice Thursday. On Thursday, we can expect sunny skies, highs in the middle 50s, and a pleasant day all around. Even better weather arrives for Friday with sunny skies, highs in the low to mid 60s across the region. And as we make our way into the weekend, a chance for showers and thunderstorms will be with us on both Saturday and Sunday. Highs on Saturday in the middle 60s and on Sunday near 70.
great consumer demand. Redux Beverages has officially announced the return of its world-famous cocaine energy supplement. It's now available at retail locations across the country, as well as online at reduxdirect.com. That's reduxdirect.com. Don't forget to be part of the all-new Cocaine Energy Supplement social network, where you can meet other Cocaine Energy Supplement fans from around the world. Cocaine Energy Supplement. You can become a member. You can become a member by logging on to lovecocaine.com. P99 Technologies. Affordable and reliable web hosting done right. Jumping from one web host to another can be frustrating. Finding a good web host can be unnerving for even the most experienced of web designers. That's why Uncensored Net Noise has chosen P99 Technologies as its web hosting supplier. Established in 1999, P99 Technologies has evolved into a first-class web hosting provider. Its 99.9% uptime rivals many in the industry. That's why they offer their 30-day guarantee, no questions asked. For more information, go to P99.com. P99 Technologies will help you get started with your web presence with honest and expert customer service. P99 Technologies. Affordable and reliable web hosting done right.
Hey, it's Big Daddy from The Marty Allen Show. Catch the replay of The Marty Allen Show every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern right here on MSC. Now, my show airs Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 3 p.m. and Saturdays at 2 at MartyAllenShow.com. But you can catch the best of The Marty Allen Show every Thursday at 7 p.m. right here on Morning Show Central. So if you want all the latest sports news, entertainment news, and everything else that's going on in the world, then tune into my show live at MartyAllenShow.com and the best of the replays right here at MorningShowCentral.com. Get MSC and get cooking, baby.
Rise above the clutter, brand your identity, and make a statement. Broken Fan Media. Expert video production, television and web commercials, music video, real estate tours, live concerts and events, state-of-the-art post-production, video and audio editing. Check us out on the web at brokenfanmedia.com. 434-944-0472. Broken Fan Media. The next generation of sight and sound. If you're looking for the best in musical equipment, recording gear, sound reinforcement, and more, Guitar Center has you covered. Guitar Center, located at 26635 Brook Park Road in North Olmsted, has the tools of your trade with the largest selection of music and sound gear in the area. They cater to your musical needs and have the knowledge to help you out. Guitar Center in North Olmsted. MorningShowCentral.com uses them. You should too. Need to know more? Go to GuitarCenter.com. Hey, Unsigned Bands.
You are jam-packed.
Hey, Unsigned Bands. Want your music heard? Yeah! Shoot us an email with the name of the band and the MP3 of the song. Send it to show@morningshowcentral.com. You're listening to Morning Show Central Radio Network on morningshowcentral.com. You're listening to MSC Radio Network, and like anything else on the internet, it runs on computers. Lots of computers. And you know, when you're dealing with computers, hard drives sometimes crash. That happened here at MSC. And you know what saved them? Rectiphy backup software. Don't believe us? Well, ask yourself this question. Are you backed up? Probably not. So don't be that guy and wait till it's too late. MSC did their research and tried tons of different backup programs and chose Rectiphy backup software. You know, peace of mind is priceless, and Rectiphy can give you and your computer system that peace of mind. Find out more at rectiphy.com. That's RECTIPHY.com. Having problems with your home computer or business PC? Looking to have some upgrade work completed on your computer? Have a special project in mind that may be too much for you to undertake alone? Time to call
Joe the Printer Guy!
Joe the Printer Guy offers a full-service hardware and software repair center at his facility to handle your PC, server, and networking needs. Let their professional service staff handle your computer needs. They offer expert service at an affordable price. Visit Joe the Printer Guy at 14035 Madison Avenue, Lakewood, Ohio. Online, joetheprinterguy.com, or give him a call at 216-651-3880. Joe the Printer Guy. Looking for reliable and affordable shoutcast audio or video hosting? JIO JWN Media offers complete Shoutcast hosting solutions for business or personal use. All plans come with full listener stats, custom web scripts for implementing your service into your existing website, full server control, super fast network, and huge bandwidth limits, a 99.5% uptime guarantee, and friendly, knowledgeable support personnel dedicated to making your hosting experience fun and easy. With plans starting at only $3 a month, you have no excuse not to get a server of your own. Plus, with the option to add auto DJ and on-demand services, you can be confident your station will be all it can be. Custom plans are also available at their website. Simply visit jwnmedia.com and click the Shoutcast hosting link to get started right now. Oh, great. Not another Farm Bill request. Check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Morning Show Central. Denying one Farm Bill request at a time.
We're back, and this is Jousted Out. It's Robin, Judith, and with us is retired Judge Elaine Crane, hanging out, chatting about many topics.
Schooling us.
Schooling us, yes.
Really.
And making me very nervous, folks. If you haven't noticed, my voice has trembled throughout the evening.
Cracking.
Cracking. She comes in here and
she's like, this is what's what. So
and she
she
intimidates me with her knowledge and intelligence.
I like her.
I know you do. and Chris says I'm going to get fired. So.
And you know what I love is that she's still here after the break. That's the best part. Thank you, Judge Crane.
They tied me down with the pink jacket.
We promised her wine, but we didn't bring any yet.
I know.
So.
My fault.
So, today in the news, everyone's talking about this case and the indictment in Florida of George Zimmerman. And I just wanted to get your opinion on that. And it's certainly been the super hype story over the last couple of weeks, almost mind-numbing. On our show, we have not really talked about it just because it seems like everyone in the world is. And we just were wondering your thoughts on that.
I'd like to put it in perspective for your listeners. They should watch it. Very interesting, almost as an academic exercise. It's the system, and it's working. And we should let it work, but we should watch it so we will understand it. I mean, when you're studying American jurisprudence and the constitutional rights and innocent until proven guilty and the burden on the prosecution of beyond a reasonable doubt and the fact that a defendant stands innocent until proven guilty and has a right to counsel, all of those things we've heard about is going to be highlighted and explained. The lady prosecutor who was on the air today, I was listening to her press conference as I was driving down here, is really good.
Oh, wow.
And she answered the questions, and she said, no, I'm not trying the case in the media. It is not your responsibility. I have studied the evidence, and they kept going back, and finally she said, what don't you understand about no?
Right.
And so we have it here. We have issues of how the system can work. One of the questions they ask you in law school, because not only are lawyers restrained by the law and the Constitution, but there are rules of evidence for trial lawyers that we have to obey. But there is also rules of ethics that lawyers have, and they have a very strong rules of ethics. And if they break it, there is disciplinary proceedings as well. And one of the things she pointed out to them is you can't get me to break that final one because and she said it very clearly, and people should listen to it, that the prosecution is part of the legal process. It's part of law enforcement. It's the defense bar that keeps them honest. And one of the things they always ask you in law school is if you are sitting at your desk and a man walks in and puts a bloody knife on your blotter and said, I just killed that son of a bitch, do you take the case?
Wow. That is coming from the woman that calls Justice Rehnquist. What do you call him? Bill. Yeah.
And the Justice Department's secret weapon.
Justice Department's secret weapon, former municipal court judge.
There you have it, folks.
So that's what we're going to say about the case. But we're going to move on. And, we wanted to talk a little about LGBT equality. And, you certainly tapped on your thoughts of how people should be treated. And I'm wondering your take on watching from, the 70s through the justice system and watching everything from Stonewall take place to what we have today and what we have here, not only in Ohio, but around the nation. And what are your thoughts?
I stem from the premise that if two people can care about each other and make a firm commitment that isn't whimsical and easily broken, I support it. Mm-hmm. And so when I was in private practice, I dealt with that concept back in the 80s. And what it was marriage was for a man and a woman, in my opinion, but a commitment contract was for anybody who wanted to do it, who really cared about each other and was willing to do it. And what I said was my contract of commitment lasted longer than 90% of the marriages because I interviewed people. I made sure they cared about each other. I made sure they understood what the responsibility that comes from caring for another human being. And if you care for them and you want to do it, to me, I don't care what you call it, just so you get it right. Mm-hmm. And so I drew up, when I was in private practice back in the 80s, contracts of commitment. And I'm glad to say some of them are my best friends, and they're still together.
Oh, wow.
But the marriages that I performed as municipal court judge, they're not. and I feel very, very strongly about it. And if there is a need to have the word marriage saved for one heterosexual commitment, and you call it a civil union for another one, but you treat it with absolutely the same respect, and you have the same understanding that you must provide for the orderly progression of property upon death or sale or commitment, that's fine. There is a contract of commitment for people of my age who can't be married because we have property and we want it to go to our children, and the other person wants it to go to their children, and they don't want commingling. There are elderly people who, because of a serious illness, cannot be married because one has got certain type of health care and the other one can't provide it. Mm-hmm. What I want to see happen in this world is I'd like to see happiness. I don't think that's being obtuse. And I would like to see people to be openly responsible to the person they love.
Well, what do you say to folks that would say that, especially obviously from the equality side of saying, well, marriage is a word, but it's a word that has meaning legally, and has meaning legally. A lot of states talk about, they would have to go through, and some of the arguments back in the early days around fighting for even civil unions and marriage, because legislators would say, well, we would accept civil unions, but not gay marriage. And then the next battle was to actually change the law books around all of that code covering that.
We tried in the feminist movement to pass 1 USC 1. Do you know what that is?
I do not.
It said, in every law in the United States, he shall mean she.
Oh, wow.
And boy, was it a mess. Mm-hmm. It just didn't happen because every single statute had to be changed a little bit.
Yeah.
What you have to decide is what the term marriage means. Is it daffodils and roses and sweet music and sex? Mm-hmm. Is it the orderly succession of property? Is it a religious tenet that you adhere to? Is it buying property and having insurance because spouses or significant others have it? If you can define that universally, then you can use one word for it. Mm-hmm. But if you can't define it universally, then a word civil union can mean what you want it to mean in that context, and it will work. Mm-hmm. When I do marriage ceremonies, and I like to do them a lot. I talk about how there are 3 levels of the commitment that the couple is going to be making to themselves. The first is their private commitment, the one that you have made, not you to her, because
that wouldn't work.
Mark would get really upset with me.
He really would.
But you to me, no. But that's the private commitment, and you can do that in this day and age.
Right.
You don't have to do anything as far as anybody else is concerned, and you will be accepted as a team, as a couple, as a partnership, whatever you want to call it. You are accepted in that. And you treat other people with respect. I mean, I will tell you that there have been some situations that I have been into in a gay situation where I have been embarrassed and offended with overt sexual acts in a public restaurant. I mean, I have been uncomfortable, and I just didn't feel that was appropriate for me, and I had to leave. So I lost an opportunity to do something. That aside, if you have your commitment, I think you should be accepted, and you know how I feel about that. But there's the next commitment. The whoops.
Freudian slip.
Got that one out. The next commitment is the one that the state gives a print of.
Right.
And it can be called a civil union. It can be called a partnership. It can be called a marriage. Whatever fits within your culture and your world. And I think the law should allow all 3. And each one should be what it's for. And the things that come from marriage is a false creation by culture, so we can have a recognition of the unit and a way to take care of children and a way to take care of the progression of property. And the biggest part of the law regarding marriage is probate law. You know, what happens when you die. And let me finish.
Okay.
And the third
I had
one.
another question.
Well, you hold it. Restrooms
Don't you feel like you're in a courtroom when you're in housing court?
And then the third one is the spiritual commitment. Okay. And my opinion is that's what we're all arguing about, the spiritual commitment, and that's nobody's business. Because when I do a ceremony, I like to read on marriage from Gibran, because he talks about the 2 trees that grow side to side, and it's Muslim. And I get some strange looks from my couples, and I say, now listen to this, my words, and you'll understand. Or you do the Lord's Prayer, which is pretty innocuous, or I wrote a poem. And I say the poem, and the poem I wrote is called Partnership, Hand in Hand. That's what I'm talking about.
With the way that she just explained it, no, you go ahead.
He forgot his question.
No, I didn't. Go ahead, Robin.
I was just going to say, with the way that she just explained it, I've never heard it exactly like that before. And with that, I'm not so much stuck to the word marriage anymore, so long as the treatment is equal.
Yes, that's exactly right. She's right. Right.
Okay, now go.
It's because she's wearing pink and she's sitting next to us. And we're on the right side.
Forgive me, activist, if I
love it. You know, my opinion differs, as you know, I have a marriage from Massachusetts. It says a marriage, and I like the fact that it is the same thing that my mother was able to get it, you know, on a spur at the whim of the moment, and with her husband now of a couple of years.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
A marriage brings with it the right for a divorce. A legal civil union contract is a breach of contract with damages.
That's the one I want.
Which would you be more comfortable with?
I like the marriage because I don't want my husband ever going away, and it's such a complicated thing. He has to go live in Massachusetts for 1 year.
But the law isn't going to keep him at home.
I know.
And G, I'm not against you. I hope that didn't think that I was against
I feel you are totally against me now, Robin.
No.
I will never forgive you. No.
I am in your
Now,
boat.
children, talk it out and come to the middle.
Here's the question, though, and why it popped in my head, of course, around the probate and just the legalities, and certainly around LGBT equality, is we have right now a law that we're trying to get passed in the state of Ohio to protect the protections around employment and housing discrimination for LGBTQ people. And I want to hear your thoughts on that. And, you know, obviously a lot of the country already has that law in place, so people aren't evicted from their homes being LGBT. Or
has anybody ever asked why there was discrimination against the LBG couples? And has anybody asked why the landlords did it in the first place?
Well, we've seen many. I mean,
no. Has anybody asked why they do it in the first place?
Ask the landlord?
Yeah. You're talking about discrimination in housing.
Right.
And
okay.
And so the person or persons or corporate entity that is discriminating is discriminating. Number one is they have a space called an apartment or a house that they only make money when it's rented. Right? Okay. So to turn away paying customers, whomever they are, caused them financial problems. So why did they do it?
Well, if they've turned them away and they don't know this couple and they decide that they are not people they want in their building or their home, especially in a situation where they live in the same home, I would just say discrimination.
You're guessing.
Well,
you don't really. I can tell from your eyes you don't know.
I will play devil's advocate.
She's understanding.
I don't understand the question.
The question is we are talking about discrimination in housing. Okay, overt physical discrimination is I don't want to rent to the N word. No one will argue about that. I don't think anybody will. But if someone says my experience is that I have rented to people, let's take one that's really going to be a buzzword just for the sake of discussion, okay? I'm just going to using it because that's going to burn that computer out. Okay. I don't want to rent to people that wear hoodies and have their hands in their pockets. Okay. Why don't you want to rent to people that have hoodies with their hands in their pockets? Because my experience is the hands have guns and that they don't look you in the eye and they're around you. Well, why is that experience based on real experience, or is that experience something that you saw on television or that you think about? My experience has been that when you take someone who is starting to be discriminatory and you ask him why, or her, but it's usually him. No, excuse me. I didn't mean to say that. I'm teasing. Then you will find out what the real, and most of the time it's fear. And if you deal with fear one-on-one and rent it to me, I'm a paying customer, I have a very good job, I don't wear a hoodie, I don't subscribe to violence, then you will hear, as we made progress in the 60s and the 70s, well, I don't like the N-word, but some of my best friends are black. That was what we went through in the 70s and the 80s. Or I am uncomfortable about people who have alternative lifestyles. Back in my day, they called it gays. But some of my best friends are that. Once you get people doing that, and it's not a it's a slowly evolutionary. With the person who is scared or worried or apprehensive, then it moves along. When you pass a law that says you have to do it, people get stubborn. So if you point it out and you use the existing discrimination laws, you can't discriminate against people if you think they can't pay the bill, but you can discriminate against them if their credit score is 400. Then you've got real concrete things. Does that make any sense at all?
It does. It makes total sense. And I want to talk about the place that allows people with hoodies, LGBT, every color of the rainbow. Let's talk about Rider In, and we're going to leave it on that note, and I want to spend the rest of the show talking about that. So your place that you've talked about, you've kind of woven it in. Tell us about it.
Okay, after I retired and raised my children, I had a young man come up to me and say, there's this beautiful building in Painesville, Ohio that's called Riders In, and it's going through foreclosure sale, actually a drug foreclosure sale. And he said, I'd like you to be my investor. Well, one of my businesses, besides being a lawyer, was I did a venture capital firm in which I funded women in business when they couldn't get loans for everyone else. And one of the major cases that I ever litigated as the plaintiff was against American Express for discriminating against women in credit. So off I went with him to the bidding, and I scratched my nose, and we bought Riders. No, that is really true. I did do that.
It really was a mistake.
And Wayne, Wayne, who was the auctioneer, said, sold. Well, we didn't bid enough to clear the liens. Liens are the other debt obligations that are on the building. And so it had to go through a traditional foreclosure. And so what my then partner and I did is we snuck into the building and we winterized it. So at the next auction, we simply asked the auctioneer if they had winterized the building, and they didn't know. And so the other people got scared, and we were able to buy it for the same price as we had before the foreclosure. And what we decided to do with it is that I think the strongest part of tying cultures together in America and getting everyone from all different parts, the melting pot of Cleveland, is to have a common history and to understand just how different and special. And I've lived in Chile, I've lived in Europe, I've lived in England. My husband was British. We're special people, and I'm very proud of all of us. And one of the things to do with history is you can read about it, you can watch it on the screen, but I preserved writers in so you can smell it and you can touch it and you can hear it. And our building was built in 1812. This is our bicentennial year, so we have a bicentennial drink and a bicentennial room.
I can't wait to go, actually. It sounds wonderful.
And we have restored the Underground Railroad 10 feet. Congressman Snoke was really unhappy because I wasn't willing to take all of the tunnels that had been collapsed. Oof. And the children raised $300 in dimes and nickels to help me restore the tunnels. And so what we did is we put a plaque up and we devoted lectures or talks on the Underground Railroad. The kids come for the food that Mrs. Ryder would have served the escaping slaves who were going north to Canada. You all know that Ohio was contiguous to what slave state?
I don't know.
Oh my God.
It would be Kentucky? I don't know.
Pennsylvania? What do we do? Are we just naming states that touch Ohio?
No. The Congress enacted a statute that said that any non-slave state that was contiguous to a slave state, an escaping runaway slave, I didn't put you on the spot, you're next, could not grant them freedom, because obviously you could swim over the Ohio River and you could do it. What was the slave state that was contiguous to Ohio? It was Virginia, because West Virginia didn't exist until the Civil War, when they seceded from Virginia and were an independent country. Okay, there's your history lesson for the day. There'll be a quiz next week. Anybody who comes into the bar that knows that answer to the question, Judy will buy them a drink.
Yes.
Well, this is about that time. I hate to cut everybody off.
Well, wait a second. We're going to continue.
Well, I mean, we're going to continue. I just want to remind you, because we're all caught up in your story and we can listen to you for hours. I just, we get kicked out and get in trouble.
I know.
Okay. So please, now let's continue.
Are we done? How much time?
No, it's haunted.
That was my reminder.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that we found after we restored this building and we brought it back to the 1812 is that things started to disappear or move. A door kept opening and shutting.
And it's a working bed and breakfast. People stay there overnight.
Spend the night.
Yeah.
And what we discovered is that Mr. Ryder had 4 wives. Wives number 1 and 2 died in childbirth, and one had a heart attack on our stairs. Her name was Roseanne, and she was 4 foot high and 4 foot wide. So whenever I think I'm eating too much of my own food and I can't touch both door jambs, I'm okay. But his third wife was Suzanne, and she was married to him for 6 weeks. And she died then. And back in those days, speaking for the other subject, when a man married a woman, any properties she owned became his upon her death, and he only had the obligation of dower. That's something we don't want back again, right?
Right.
Anyways, when he killed her, he went from the second poorest man in Painesville to the second wealthiest. And so all the psychics that come in say that Suzanne is very proud that there's now a woman owning the building, and she's there to protect her investment. And she makes appearances.
Well, on that note, what's your website?
WritersIn.com.
So people need to go to WritersIn.com, go out and visit the judge. You'll have a great time. We're going to go there. Judith goes there.
See the haunted room.
Judith goes there an awful lot.
Yeah.
And we are actually going to play this on our way out. I don't know even if it'll get played, because Chris is probably ready to kill us.
I know.
Especially me.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Judge Crane.
Yes.
We'll have to have you back, and we're going to go out on this crazy video.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
We might cross-dress, but that's not what's to blame. Making our coins, but it's all for food. We'll do anything, we're down for groups. After taking some dudes I'm behind, all we want to score is chicken fried. Oh, someday somebody's gonna make you wanna gobble up a waffle fry. But no, don't you know Chick-fil-A say you make the baby Jesus cry. To the booth, get group pay, even Dyke say right. So chow down at Chick-fil-A, chow Chick-fil-A. It don't matter if you're gay. I said no mayonnaise. Fuck. Spicy fried chicken may burn. Whole out stingray for days, but that chicken's worth the pain.
I've seen a rainbow, and on the other side there was a bucket of Polynesian sauce for me to dip my nuggets in. Why is it because I live my life so gay? I should not eat Chick-fil-A, I'm gonna eat it anyway. They say his promise is true, but what if you are a Jew?